For most people, grouting their mosaic project is the part that they're the least comfortable doing because it is the thing that they just don't have very much experience with. So I'm going to walk you through the simple steps of how to grout your mosaic masterpiece. So what you're going to need before you get started with your grouting is your grout, of course, your little bag of white grout that came with your kit. You're also going to want a disposable cup of some kind, something that you don't mind getting a little bit messy. And then you're going to want some water close by. So we're going to mix some of this with our grout. So I've got mine in a little cup. You can get yours from the faucet or whatever works best for you. I like to use the back of my paintbrush to mix my grout, but if you would prefer to use like a disposable spoon, that works too. We just need something to stir with, and then we'll be ready to go. When you've gathered your supplies, it's time to mix everything up. So what we want to do is we want to take our little bag of grout. We want to dump the whole thing into our disposable cup that we're going to be using for mixing. It's much easier to do this if you do the whole thing at one time. You want to then take the back of your paintbrush or your spoon and get ready to stir. And I'm going to take some water and I'm going to pour about 2 tablespoons at a time into my grout cup and stir it up with the back of my brush. I like to use just a little bit of water at a time to make sure that I don't make it too runny. If you do make it too runny, just give it a few minutes to dry and it'll harden as you wait. If you don't have enough water, just of course add some more. Now what we're looking for is a peanut butter-like consistency. Some people always ask me, do you mean mayonnaise? Can it be mustard consistency? No. Peanut butter is the way to go. That ensures that it's not too thin, not too thick. So we're looking for a nice smooth peanut butter texture. Now I want to make sure we get all the grout that's in the very bottom of the cup. You can see some of the grout in the bottom of the cup is still dry. So I want to make sure that it's really thoroughly mixed before I start applying it to my mosaic masterpiece. So really get it good and stirred until you feel like it's reached that nice peanut butter consistency. And then we're going to start applying it to our mosaic. Now you should have already laid out and glued down your tiles before you do this. If you haven't done that yet, stop, do that first, and come back to the grouting. Alright, so that looks pretty decent. It's like a smooth peanut butter texture. I want to make sure most of the lumps are out. Now what I like to do is just kind of pour it over my mosaic. Now this can be a little bit stressful because you just spent all this time applying these beautiful tiles and now we're covering them all up. But don't worry, we're going to get them right back. So once you've dumped it on there, then you're just going to take your finger and press it into all the little cracks and grooves. Now I typically do kind of a big picture first, get it most of the way covered, and then go through and make sure that I've got all of my little edges. So all of these little spaces around the edge, we want to make sure that the grout is between the tile and the wood backing so it looks nice and finished. Yes, you're gonna get your fingers kind of messy for this, but the good news is that it comes off very easily. You're just gonna wash your hands when you're done and your fingers will be good as new. Now, if you are really not a person who likes to get messes on their hands, you can use your paintbrush for this. It's just going to take a lot longer and it's a little bit harder to control. Take all the time you need for this. We're not in a big hurry. And if you find that you've added too much, just kind of put it back in your cup. Now again, we're not worrying about the fact that our tiles can't be seen right now. We're going to wipe all of this down until it's shiny and beautiful and finished in just a moment. Okay, now I've made sure I've gone all the way around my little masterpiece. And now I'm going to give it just a few minutes to dry before I add my next layer of wiping and finishing. So give your mosaic about 10 to 15 minutes before you move on to the next thing. once you've given your mosaic masterpiece about 10 minutes to dry, the next thing we're going to want to do is start to wipe it off. So I like to use baby wipes, but you can use paper towels, napkins, whatever you have on hand. So you just want to take your hand flat with your paper towel, your baby wipe, or your napkin, and start wiping across the top of your artwork. So you'll see that your tiles will start to reveal themselves, and you'll start to get that shine and color back for your artwork. Now, we're not going to get them completely cleaned off at this stage because the grout is still very wet. So what we're going to do is we're going to get it most of the way there, and then we're going to wipe it down again in a couple of hours. So we're going to get the majority of it now, and the rest of it once it's dried the rest of the way. So I'm going to use my wipe to clean all my little edges. You may have to get your finger in there in some places. Make sure you go all the way around, getting that nice and cleaned off, because once it is dry, it's really quite hard. So you want to make sure you get the vast majority of the grout removed at this stage rather than waiting until it's dry. So you can see how it's already starting to look more finished with all of this being cleaned up around the sides. Be sure not to wipe so much that you lose the grout in between your tiles. We do want to keep as much as we can in between them. And if you need to get some more from your cup and add it back in, you should still have some that is still wet enough to use and reapply if you wipe away too much of your grout. All right, so now that I've got my edges, I'm going to get one more clean wipe, put it flat on my hand, and wipe it down just a couple more times, looking for areas that the grout is still a little bit thick. So you can see now the most grout that is on top of my tiles is just a thin film in these kinds of spaces here. Now we can get all of that off once it's dry. So this is a good stage to stop, let it dry overnight or over a couple of hours, and then come back to it with a new wipe, wipe it off one last time, and you will be all set.